Oh. Oh. Satchidananda Rupaya Vishvotpatyadi Hetave Tapatraya Vinashaya Shri Krishnaya Vayam Numaha. Janmadhyasya yatonvayaditaratascharteshvabhignaswarat Tene brahmahridaya adikavaye muhyanti yatsuryaha Tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo yatra trisargo mrisha Dhamna svena sada nirasta kuhakam Satyam param dhimahi Dharma projita kaitavotra paramo nirmatsaranam satam Vedyam vastavamatra vastu shivadam tapatrayonmulanam Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Kim va parerishvaraha Sadyo hridya varudyate trakritibihi Shushushubhistatkshanat. Hari Om, and greetings from Niagara Falls. Puja Guruji Swami Tejomayananda had asked another great teacher, his name is Swami Advayananda, what is Vedanta? And Swami Advayananda responded by sharing a technical definition. He essentially shared Vedanta is the Upanishad. And Puja Guruji acknowledged that and then shared, I feel Vedanta is a mirror. Vedanta is a mirror. Think of the last time you looked into a mirror. For many of you, it was moments before you joined, because in class, you're not looking at me or listening to me. You're looking and listening to yourself. Yes. When you look at a mirror, you're not looking at the mirror, you're looking at yourself. So often when you look at a mirror, suppose you're at a restaurant, you don't even know the color of the frame of that mirror, if it even has a frame, because you're looking at yourself. And the practicality of this lovely insight is if you look at a mirror casually, you will know how you look casually. That's why I never look at a mirror carefully. That way I don't know how I look. That way I have this image in my mind that I look okay. But if you look at a mirror carefully, you will come to see who you are carefully. Vedanta means Veda, to know. Antaha, that which is inner. Knowing the inner. Another word for inner is Atma, that which is innermost, that which is our center. We are engaged in the science to know that which is inside. This is the most causal subject, the most transformative subject. Engaging in Vedanta is difficult. We're not used to it. We're not trained in this. So we are engaging in Vedanta insulated by Bhagavata. Right now, we're celebrating our 100th class together. We've been engaged in this development for 100 hours. Bhagavata, ta means to cross. What do you cross with? A boat. Va means the best. So boat, best. Ga means to go, but not go anywhere externally. That's why I said antaha, inner. And bha, what will we find? Light. I was just sharing with our Chinmaya Mission Cleveland families, should you follow the path of the moon or the sun? And they did share the sun because the sun has independent light. The light of our being is the only independent light. If you were born in 1950, and now let's say it's 2020, over 70 years, what has happened to the sun? It's become smaller, correct? I think it's burning up material and having less power. Even if I'm wrong, eventually we'll get to that, yes? But not the light of our being. Boat, best, feel, light. We are all bhagya to be engaging in this science that we are not trained in, that is Vedanta, with Bhagavatam holding our hand tightly, that even when we try to pull away, Bhagavatam pulls us back. We began our course focusing on Mahatmya, which means the greatness of Bhagavatam. This is like a prelude so that we're ready for when Bhagavatam begins. And the Mahatmya was a narration specifically about a Devi named Bhakti. And she had two children. Does anyone remember what their names are? The first one is a very awesome name. Viveka and Vairagya. Two children, two sons, Viveka and Vairagya, but they looked and felt way older than her. And the implication of this is that people's relationship with bhakti is superficial. It's about singing and dancing. If you're always singing and dancing, you look and feel young. But that authenticity and depth, the Viveka and Vairagya, was not being encouraged. So they were getting old and dying away. At that time, Devi Bhakti was exposed to a Bhagavata Saptaha, the 18,000 verses of Bhagavatam were shared in 7 days. And those two sons, they became excited, enthusiastic, and everyone was joyous. Also in the Mahatmya was an interesting story about Dundukari and Gokarna. Dundukari was an icon of vices. He was a vicious personality. And at one point, I believe he got trapped into a bamboo stick. And I believe it's his brother or close friend. His name is Gokarna, who is an icon of virtues. And Gokarna starts to share insights about Bhagavatam. And what happens to Dundukari? He becomes free from being trapped in that bamboo stick. Now, the implication of this is the power of listening. Gokarna, show me your karna. Here. Some of you are offended. How dare you ask us? It's your ears. Gokarna is the one who listens carefully. Or Shravana. Then naturally they can share carefully too. And that's all we need to do. is listen carefully, and we will start to feel more lighthearted. We will start to feel the light. Skanda 1 of Bhagavatam begins in the Mahatmya is not intrinsic to Bhagavatam. Okay? This is an additional facet that helps us be ready for Bhagavatam. The first skanda or section of Bhagavatam tunes us into Naimisharanya. There's a jungle. I've named our home Naimisharanya. It is very jungle-like, but the intention is what is important. In this jungle, there is a yaga that is happening. Imagine the last puja that you observed times 1,000 in terms of people and materials. And during this time, there is a great thinker. His name is Rishi Shaunaka. For those in our Upanishad course, I just referenced him. Same Rishi Shaunaka. He knows, he feels that the people in this yaga are not interested in this ritual. Many of us are the same way, but we don't free ourselves from that ritual, yes? Out of fear. He knows it, he feels it, so he approaches Rishi Ugrashava. The ritual is happening, but he wants meaning, and Rishi Ugrashava is one who knows this meaning, and he asks 6 questions. On behalf of all of the thinkers there, he asks 6 questions. Those questions are, what is the greatest good for all? And what a lovely question. He never asked, what do I get to eat? How can I be rich? What is the greatest good for all? And he's such a thinker, he pseudo knows the answer, so he continues. Tell me about the purpose of avatara, the performance of avatara, the passings of avatara, and the play of avatara. Okay, treat that as one question. Okay, treat that as one question. What is the purpose of avatara? And the 6th question is, what is the home of dharma? How can one tune into dharma? And I'm sharing with all of you what a great thinker he is, because he knows that Bhagavan Krishna's incarnation does not last forever. Technically, does not last forever, which is why he asks, when Bhagavan Krishna was around, there was dharma. Now Bhagavan Krishna is not around, where is dharma? This question and the answer, Rishi Ugrashava, most humble, says, this question was asked before and answered before, and he takes us to the 2nd skanda. And here we come to understand who, though he's known as Raja Parikshita, I keep describing him as Rishi Parikshita. The word Parikshita means the one who's ever inquiring, ever engaged in vichara. As soon as he was born, he was inquiring, who saved me? Because someone tried to murder him as a fetus, and when he came out, who saved me? He's inquiring into what is all of this, and his inquiry is not shallow, it is sincere. So who comes to him? Rishi Shuka. And Rishi Shuka, so many people ask me, what does your son's name mean? So first I wink at them and say parrot. And then they're taken aback because what kind of father are you? And so on and so forth. And then I tell them the implication of this, because Shuka does mean parrot, okay? Technically does mean parrot. The implication of this is one who is enlightened because they've tasted that which is sweetest. Apparently, parrots only eat that which is sweet. So Rishi Shuka is one who's only tasted the sweetest of the sweet, which is enlightenment. And when he felt Rishi Parikshita's inquiry into that sweetness, he came there to answer his questions. And essentially, Rishi Parikshita's question is, what should a dying human do? What should a dying human do? Can you all put your hand up if you're a dying human? If you're a human, you're dying. If you're finite, you are dying. See the connection of the questions. What is the greatest good for all? It's the same question. What should a dying human do? And the essential answer is Satyam Param Dhimahi. I've now chanted this 100 times for all of us, for Vivek and all of us, to contemplate on Sat or Satya. Because if you contemplate on this, you will know that dying doesn't apply to you. Fear should not apply to you. Skandhas 3 through 5. They're technically focused on Sarga, Visarga, and Sthana. I'd summarize these for all of you. These 3 sections are to encourage us to be believers. They're more extrovert in nature because that's what we're tuned into right now. Tell me about creation. Tell me about how humans lived. Skandhas 6 through 8. Each of these sections becomes subtler, causal. Technically are focused on Poshana, Uti, and Saddharma. Poshana, Uti, Saddharma. I summarize this for us to evolve from being a believer to being faithful. Those who are more faithful need less evidence. I don't care about how creation started. Just tell me what I'm supposed to do with it. Yes? I feel our relationships should be like that too. We're so interested in how a problem started instead of focusing on the solution, correct? If me knowing about the problem helps the solution, fine. But if it doesn't help, why would I waste myself in that problem? And Skandhas 9 through 10. This is where we are right now. The teaching is on Nasha and Ashraya. Nasha and Ashraya. Ashraya means surrender. We have gone through 100 hours to prepare ourselves to surrender. And I have never forgotten what Puja Guruji, Swami Tejomayananda, taught us when we were studying Bhagavad Gita. He said, the greatest use of free will is to surrender your free will. The greatest use of free will. We all have free will, in brackets. The greatest use of our free will is to surrender that to God's will. This is too complex for us. We're not trained in this. We're not used to this. Bhagavatam holds our hand how? Bhagavatam is often described as a Leela. Leela. When I say Leela, you think of dancing, you think of children, but there's a wonderful etymology to this. I shared this in Ramayana, I've shared this in Bhagavatam, I'm sharing it again. Leenam bhavam lati prakatayati. Linam bhavam lati prakatayati iti lila. A lila is that which releases one's potential. Lila is that which releases one's potential. Another way of defining it, even though the implication is the same, a lila is that which melts your heart. Melts our sense of ego, correct? If Vivek becomes more large-hearted, Vivek will just be better at all he does. So Bhagavatam's a lila to learn to love ourselves less, as in the superficial self, and love Bhagwan more, who is our factual self. Bhagavatam has two messages about avatars, or described as lila avatars. What is the purpose of an avatara? Lila. There are two messages. The first, this comes, for your reference, in the first skanda, the third adhyaya, the sixth shloka, 136, where Rishi Vyasa lists out 23 lila avatars. He lists out 23. I had read all of these to you. I'm going to read them again. I want to stipulate one point. I had shared this a long time ago. I'm sharing it again. I have studied that there's 24 avatars that are focused on in Bhagavatam. So why is 23 written here? Because Nara Narayana are treated as one in this text, but I have treated them as two because everyone else is one unit. So Nara Narayana, they're two separate embodiments. I've treated them as two, okay? Both are right. I'm going to start reading these out to you, but you already know this because that was your raw. Yes? You reviewed 99 hours of content to find out which avatars we have explored. Here I go. Avatar 0 is Narayana. Avatar 0. Why Vivek is saying 0? Please hear me before you start writing. In Bhagavatam, the message is that Narayana is the absolute, and he begins to take avatars. But in our study of Vedanta, Brahman is absolute. Even Narayana is an avatar of Brahman. Is everyone resonating with what I'm sharing? That's why I'm saying 0. Avatar 0, Narayana. 1, Bhagwan Brahma. 2, the Sanata Kumaras. See, and it's complicated because these Sanata Kumaras are 4, but they're treated as 1, right? So let me just keep going. We'll reconcile later. 3, Bhagwan Varaha. 4, Bhagwan Narasimha. 5, Bhagwan or Rishi Naranarayana. Naranarayana. 6, Rishi Kapila. 7, Rishi Dattatreya. 8, Rishi Yajna. They're just listed as Yajna, but I can't just say Yajna. So I include Rishi, Bhagwan, and so on. 9, Bhagwan Rishabha. 10, Raja Prithu. 11, Bhagwan Matsya. 12, Bhagwan Kachapa, also known as Kurma. 13, Bhagwan Dhanvantari. You remember in the churning of the Milky Oceans, lots of avatars came. It was like an avatar party that was happening. 14, Bhagavati Mohini. She's an avatar too. Then, and I need to apologize here. For 4, you have Bhagavan Narasimha, correct? That should be Rishi Narada. That should be Rishi Narada. Bhagavan Narasimha is 15. Okay? Rishi Narada, number 4. Bhagavan Narasimha is 15. 16, Bhagavan Vamana. 17, Bhagavan Rama, but Parashurama. Everyone's name is Rama near the end, but Parashurama. 18 is Rishi Vyasa. 19, Bhagavan Rama. 20, Balarama. His name is Rama too, but we describe him as Balarama. 21, Bhagavan Krishna. 22, Gautama Buddha. And 23 is Bhagavan Kalki. The names are correct. The orders, different people focus in different ways. Just hold the names, okay? Please don't compare lists about numbers because, again, the Sanata Kumars are 4. Naranarayana are 2. Is Bhagavan Narayana an avatara, etc. Okay, the implication of all of this. Pujya Guruji Swami Tejomayananda shared with us, an avatara is one who follows, facilitates, and felicitates dharma. Are you following dharma? Say yes or no. Imagine we're on a plane right now. Yes or no, emergency exit. Are you facilitating dharma? That means you're encouraging others to do the same. Yes or no? Are you felicitating, meaning you're celebrating those who follow and facilitate dharma? Yes or no? So point to me, who is an avatara? You are. We're releasing our potential. We are melting our ego. That's the second message of Bhagavatam, is that all are avatars. You zoom in on 24, 24 goes to 48, 48, and you just keep on doubling till it's all our avatars. Remember in Meaningful Mornings I shared avatar is protector, but finally avatara is presence. You only need a protector in Dvaita. If there's no Dvaita, what do you need protection from? So all are avatars. This 30-minute summary of 99 hours of Bhagavatam is complete. Now I'll briefly review last week's class and briefly flow through this week's new content. In the 12th section, the 64th chapter, there's a narration about Nriga, who was the chameleon who became free. The 65th chapter, and now I'm telling you, 67 and 68 also. 65, 67, 68, they all revolve around Sri Balarama. Sri Balarama. 65, Sri Balarama goes back to Vrajabhumi to be with his parents, to be with the Gopas and the Gopis. In the 66th chapter, who was the personality we met? Remember his awesome name. Sounds very tough. Paundraka. You may not know this, but Paundraka actually had 4 wooden arms created and like a wooden discus. You know, I just imagine my children dressed up as Paundraka for Halloween, you know, like with these 4 wooden arms and Shuka spinning the discus and saying, I'm Krishna, I'm Krishna, I'm Krishna. That was Paundraka. And that was a very funny portion of Bhagavatam later on in that chapter. When Paundraka was destroyed, Paundraka's friend was the Raja of Kashi, as in Varanasi. He had a son named Sudakshina. Sudakshina and the priests in Kashi, they all invoked black magic. And from this black magic came a demoness named Kritya. And she essentially was made of fire. And she started to chase Bhagavan Krishna and all associated with him. So what did Bhagavan Krishna do? He released his fire. That is the Sudarshana Chakra. And this chakra started chasing down Kritya, and she realized that she is powerless. So she went back to Kashi and burned all of that down. And the awesome message here is, if you have power and you use it against those who are powerless, the most powerful will use that same power against you. Power is to be used to support those who are powerless. Chapter 67, coming back to Sri Balarama, he came across this monkey named Dvivida. He was a minister of Sugriva from the Ramayana. And he was friends with Paundraka, Sudakshina, etc. So now he's angry at Bhagavan Krishna. So what does he start to do? He starts to destroy the places where Bhagavan Krishna's bhaktas are. And the details are pretty epic. He's picking up mountains and throwing them at countrysides, and there's landslides everywhere. He would go into bodies of water and start splashing, and all of these villages would be flooded. At one point, he comes across Sri Balarama, and Sri Balarama's with the gopis and gopis, and here's what happens. The monkey, in turn, casts ridicule on them in the very presence of Rama, that is Balarama, by showing his posterior at them and then wagging his eyebrows lustily. So this is Dvivida. And what did Balarama do? His mace, his name is Sunanda. And he uses that mace to destroy Dvivida. Now, what some commentators share, Dvivida is an icon for Dvaita. Wherever there's duality, what comes with that? Revenge. So Sunanda, what is your friend? Advaita. Chapter 68. Again, these chapters are not heavy in Vedanta. Duryodhana has a daughter named Lakshmana. And she is in love with Bhagavan Krishna's son, whose name is Samba. And Samba goes to Hastinapura, and he essentially forces his way into the Swayamvara, and the Kauravas end up capturing him, Duryodhana, etc. Rishi Narada finds out about this and goes back to Dwarka and tells Bhagavan Krishna and all that your son has been captured, is being held by your own family. Now, Sri Balarama, he is a peacekeeper. So he goes on a peace mission to Hastinapura, where the Kauravas are, and he stops at the outside of the city, and Sri Uddhava meets him. And he tells Sri Uddhava, go to the Kauravas and ask them what their intention is. Why have they captured my nephew? Find out what their intentions are. So Uddhava goes, and those Kauravas are so happy that Sri Balarama has come there. So they meet him at the end of the city, and Sri Balarama says, return my nephew to me. And they were infuriated by what Sri Balarama was sharing, because they felt he was just a gopa. A cowherd is a coward. So Sri Balarama, he didn't like that. So what did he take? He takes his plow and he lifted all of Hastinapura and put it in the Ganga. So now imagine, like a toy tugboat that's in this bath. You know how it's wobbling around? Hastinapura is wobbling around in the Ganga. So now they're all ashamed of what they said and what they're doing. So they ask for forgiveness. And he restores Hastinapura, and then Lakshmana and Samba, they go back to Dwaraka and all are celebrated there. But what's very interesting in Bhagavatam, what is shared is, I'll read it to you. This Hastinapura, as a monument of Balarama's prowess, stands even today with its southern side elevated as if it were going to fall into the Ganga. So the next time you're near Hastinapura, you go and do some topography of that. And then you will find the fact of this. Okay. One Vedantic insight from that, and then I'll quickly flow through chapter 69, which becomes more Vedantic. Sri Balarama at one point is telling the Kauravas, for those who are the greatest, they don't need a throne to prove that. He's supporting his brother, that you all have thrones, but you're all weak. My brother, Bhagavan Krishna, he doesn't have a throne. He created his own throne and sits on it. But he doesn't need any external validation. That is a fine message for us. If you're great, you don't need external validation. So no more selfies, okay? Chapter 69. Rishi Narada had heard about how Bhagavan Krishna was in many, many, many vivahas. And he was curious about this. So he comes to Dwaraka. Remember, Rishi Narada cruises through dimensions. He has a free pass to all. He's like the chief of staff. I think the chief of staff can go anywhere in the White House, correct? So he's like the chief of staff. And when he gets to Dwaraka, the details are lovely, that there's 4-way crossroads. We always attribute the highway system in America to Eisenhower. But who did Eisenhower learn it from? Bhagavan Krishna. He is the architect of Dwaraka. And he walks into a palace and he sees Bhagavan Krishna, and Bhagavan Krishna offers him the most respect and asks him, what can I do for you? And Rishi Narada is just watching what Bhagavan Krishna is doing in this palace. Then he doesn't have too much of a dialogue. He gets up and goes to another palace, and who does he see there? There's Bhagavan Krishna, engaged in different activities. And there's such lovely activities. I need to read this to you. In finding out, this is what he was doing in one palace. In finding out at proper time suitable husbands and wives for daughters and sons, and in conducting their marriage ceremonies in all grandeur. In taking part in the festivals connected with the sending of daughters after marriage, and in the reception of the newly wedded daughters-in-law, causing astonishment among people on seeing him, who is the Lord of all yogis, engaged in such domestic activities. He is the best grahastha, caring for every facet of his family, of the domestic affairs. And see, Rishi Narada is not married. So he thinks what Bhagavan Krishna is outside and Bhagavan Krishna inside is different. And Bhagavan Krishna senses this. And so this is the shloka I'm going to read and all of you to remember. Chapter 69, verse 40. This is Bhagavan Krishna speaking to Rishi Narada. Brahman dharmasya vyaktaham karta tad anumodita tad chikshaye lokami amastita putra madkidaha. which means I am following the dharma of a brahmana. A brahmana here means one who studies and shares nobility. Karta tad anumodita, but I do this cheerfully. See all of us at 11 a.m., Bhagavatam class, cheerfully. 11:45, that all changes then, yes? From Bhagavatam to lunch. And why do I do this? Shiksha. I do this to teach. Teach all those who follow, facilitate, felicitate Bhagavatam. Mama astitaha, I am established in myself. Putra ma kidaha, my family does not lower me. Kidaha means to depress, to weaken. I am cheerful in all of this. I am never made cranky. That describes all of us, yes? I remember this shloka again and again and again because my role model as a son and brother and husband and father, I was about to say grandfather, father, is not my neighbor. It's not you, and I shouldn't be your role model either. It is Bhagavan Krishna. So many times people ask me about the balance between self-forgiveness and self-criticism. The higher your role model is, the more self-criticism one engages in a productive way. I do not mean in a destructive way. That if Bhagavan Krishna never allows himself to be cranky, and I am Bhagavan Krishna and you are, then why do I allow myself to become cranky? Why that kidaha? Why that fall? This should be our shloka. Instead of chanting Brahmarpanam, all is infinite, then we go and eat at a buffet. This should be our shloka on how we should live. Oh.